Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why a song can instantly transport you back in time, making you feel like you are reliving a specific moment from your past? Today, we're diving into some fascinating new research that explores exactly how our brains process music. From the first sounds we hear to the deep memories they can unlock. Imagine you hear a song cover that sounds really different from the original. Maybe the singer's voice is completely changed, or the instruments are different. Yet, you still know it is the same song. How does our brain manage to recognize the essence of a song despite all these changes? And more importantly, how does this relate to those powerful memories that music can bring back? That is the big question researchers Riesa, Cassano-Coleman, Jakubowski, and Elise Piazza set out to answer. They looked at how our brains interpret music, moving from what we hear to what we remember. Think about seeing. You can recognize your best friend even if they get a haircut, wear different clothes, or are in a different picture taken from another angle. Your brain abstracts away from the tiny details to grasp the core identity of your friend. Well, scientists aren't quite sure how well this happens in hearing, especially with something as complex as music. Music is everywhere, and it is deeply tied to our lives and our personal stories. So, how do we make sense of it all? And how does it connect to our memories? To crack this mystery, the researchers used a brilliant natural experiment, original songs and their cover versions. Covers can be really different from the originals in terms of sound, like the voice, the tempo, or the instruments. But, at their heart, they share the same melody, harmony, and lyrics. This core song identity is key. By comparing how people react to originals versus covers, the scientists could figure out which parts of the music matter most for different things. They split their work into two main studies. In the first study, they wanted to see which musical details influence how similar people thought two songs were, especially between an original and a cover. They had nearly 50 participants listen to pairs of original songs and their covers and rate how similar they sounded. They also analyzed the songs themselves, looking at a bunch of different features, things like tempo, the kind of instruments used, the singer's voice range, even more complex sound patterns that mimic how our ears process sound called spectrotemporal modulation energy. And they found some really interesting things. Several of these features like tempo, how fast or slow the song is. And that spectrotemporal modulation energy really mattered. When songs were very different in these aspects, people rated them as less similar. Even things like the musical key and the genre of the song played a role. But what is super cool is that when they used a super advanced method called lasso regression, which is like a smart way to figure out the most important factors, tempo and that spectrotemporal modulation energy really stood out. These seem to be the least likely to be abstracted away or ignored by our brains. They're deeply important for how we perceive if two songs are alike. They also looked at emotions. They asked people about how positive or negative a song felt, valence, and how exciting or calm it felt, arousal. It turned out that how positive a song felt influenced similarity judgments even beyond the sound features. But surprisingly, the feeling of arousal or excitement was completely explained by the tempo and the modulation energy. This means that when a song is more arousing, it is likely because it is faster and has certain sound patterns, not necessarily just because it feels exciting on its own. It's like the sound features are the main drivers of our emotional response in this context. Now, for study 2, they moved on to the really exciting part, music and memory. They wanted to see how these different levels of song processing, the raw sound features, and the core song identity actually influence those powerful music-evoked autobiographical memories. They used younger adults for this part, mostly between 18 and 39 years old, because this age group often has strong memories tied to music released during their younger years. They had participants listen to song clips, and if a song brought back a memory, they'd flag it. They found that originals were more likely to bring back memories than covers. That makes sense, as originals are usually the first time we encounter a song and often form that initial memory link. Here is where it gets really interesting. They looked at two aspects of the memories, how likely it was that a memory would be remembered at all, and how vivid that memory felt, how much you felt like you were reliving it. They discovered that the perceived similarity between an original and its cover actually predicted how likely a memory was to be recalled. So, if a cover sounded pretty similar to the original, and the original evoked a memory, the cover was more likely to evoke that same memory. This suggests that those perceptual features, the actual sounds, play a role in retrieving the memory. But here is the twist, this perceived similarity, and the differences in sound features like tempo that contribute to it, did not predict how vivid the memory was. Even if a cover sounded a lot like the original, the vividness of the memory it evoked wasn't necessarily greater. The vividness, the feeling of reliving the past, seem to be tied more to the core song identity, the melody, harmony, and lyrics that make it the song it is. So, what does this all mean? It is a two-tiered system. The actual sounds of a song, its tempo, and other auditory features are like the first step. They can help jog your memory, making it more likely you'll call up a past experience. But the depth of that memory, how vividly you feel like you are there again, that seems to be connected to the deeper, more abstract identity of the song. It is like the sound is the key that might unlock the door, but the contents of the room, the vividness of the memory, are determined by what the song fundamentally is. This research has some really cool implications. Think about music therapy, especially for people with conditions like Alzheimer's. Knowing that the core identity of a song is key for reliving memories, while its sound features help retrieve them, could help therapists choose the best music for their patients. Maybe using familiar covers might be a good way to help someone access memories, even if the original recording isn't available or isn't ideal. Of course, like any study, this one has limitations. They focused on younger adults, so we don't yet know how these processes might change as we age, or if we have certain cognitive impairments. Future research could explore these differences across age groups. They also used popular song covers, so the findings might not apply to all types of music. But overall, this is a fantastic piece of work that gives us a much clearer picture of how our brains handle music from the moment we hear it to the personal histories it helps us recall. It shows that music isn't just noise. It is a complex stimulus that our brains break down into layers, with different layers serving different purposes in perception and memory. It is a testament to how deeply intertwined music and our lives truly are. What do you think about these findings? Does this explain why certain songs bring back such strong memories for you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into music cognition, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science breakdowns. And as always, thanks for watching.